morning, and welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. I am tired. I was gonna watch I Love You, You Hate Me last night, but I didn't. I watched She-Hulk and went to bed early, because it's been a bit of a stressful week. All that car stuff. And it's one of those things where it's like, it feels silly to complain about now for a third day in a row on a podcast, but it's one of those things where it's like, it is the immediate feeling that something is wrong with your car, and you get in, you go to start it, and you're like, fuck me, because it started no problem yesterday, what the fuck is happening now? Like, that feeling of, what could this possibly be, is awful. And then it's like, well, how much is it going to cost? Alright, well, I don't get paid till Friday, all that kind of stuff. And that just, for 2 days, that was just constant stress. And then, of course, my boss didn't make it any easier, but here we are. So, yesterday, 2 days ago, when I watched Andor and immediately fell asleep. Today, last night, I watched She-Hulk and immediately fell asleep, and, here we are now. I'll probably watch that Saturday night, because as we get to the end of the episode, we will talk about the just fucking jam-packed release schedule of cool shit this weekend, that we're going to be doing. It's way too hot to have the heat on, or it's too warm to have the heat on, but we have a jam-packed weekend of cool shit, on this podcast, but we'll talk about that later. So, it's Friday, and yesterday was the finale of She-Hulk, and I don't think I've seen a finale to a TV show that has done as good of a job. I don't want to say retconning, because I feel like retconning is the wrong word, but fully laying out the absurdity of the situation, and the absurdity of everything that's happened, and the absurdity of how it could come together in such a ridiculous way. And I'm going to put the spoiler warning in here. Though at this point, if you have not seen it already, you've probably already had it spoiled for you at some point. But it was spoiled for me in the morning before I got to, before I went to work even, because I looked on Combo.com, and it's like, here's a bunch of shit that happened in She-Hulk last night, holy fuck. And it's like, great, I love that they do that kind of coverage, it's great. I just wish that they wouldn't say, spoiler appears in She-Hulk finale, and then put the picture of Hulk and Scar together in the scene. Like, that's where it kind of like, I'm like, what the fuck? What's the point of the spoiler warning if it's if it's the key art for the article? Like, it's just so dumb. So, yeah. So we're talking about, after last episode, Jen got she had a sex tape leak, she had a bunch of other stuff go wrong, and it is a bit of and she had her blood stolen, and then she got arrested, and now we find out that as the term for her to not face charges, they're going to neutralize her powers, and she will not be able to transform into She-Hulk anymore. So that all kind of gets laid out pretty quickly, and she moves back in with her parents, and she goes back to she goes back to her parents' house, and she's trying to figure out everything, and then she's like, look, I need to talk to someone about this. She tries Bruce doesn't answer. She tries Emil doesn't answer, Emil Blonsky. So she's like, I'm just gonna go up there, because he said I can come up whenever. And at the same time, I can never remember her character's name, but I now remember that it's Pug, not Puck, is Josh Segarra's character. But her friend is looking into all of that, and she goes undercover and gets in with the intelligentsia. And my thing going into this week was that this show is brilliant in so much as it had the foresight to take the audience reaction to the show that was going to happen, and they knew was going to happen, and work it into the show as the show was happening. So the audience reaction was seemingly happening in real time and being reflected within the show itself. Like, there's one sequence toward the middle of this episode when they're at the intelligentsia meeting, and the guy's like, look, I mean, I don't have it's not just because she's a woman. I would have the same problems if it was a male Thor, not a female Thor. And it's like, oh my god, I heard someone at work say that when Love and Thunder came out. And it's like, that's been kind of the thing, that like everything you hear in this show have all been criticisms people have made. And things you have heard people say in real life. And then the more that happens, I've found, the more the people who make those complaints, like, I don't like this show, I put up with that every week. So it is a very interesting kind of approach that they managed to do that. And I think that speaks to a certain level of self-awareness of the writers of what shit are we going to take regardless of what happened on this show. And it's like, well, let's look at past examples and we'll pull from that. And it's like, that's the same thing, and it worked very well. And they did that masterfully. And I think that alone is enough to take the show and then make it its own thing. And then we get to the end of the episode, like what appears to be the start of the end of the episode, where she arrives and she goes into the meeting of the intelligentsia, and she sees Abomination has transformed, and he is now out on stage doing a motivational speaking engagement, and she is, and you know, as that happens, the guy Hulk King takes the Hulk blood as got stolen, and takes it, and he becomes a Hulk too to fight Jen. And it's looking at all of this stuff, and everything about this, the way that this episode kind of works. It's the unfolding of this scene is great, because it's like her thoughts are, if this was happening in real life, and not in real life, I mean, like, if this was going to be the finale of the show, this would have been my thought process too. It's like, wait, this is where we're going with this show? And it's like, the bad guy isn't just, you know, the fact that they're human, they also have to be Hulk, so she can beat the crap out of them. And, like, all of that is, you know, is great. And it is so, like, there's just so much about it that I'm watching this and I'm like, this is brilliant. And then it's like, then Titania shows up and Bruce comes in from space, and you know, it's like, oh, she's like, fuck this. And then she leaves the show, like, goes out, like, onto the Disney Plus app, and leaves the show into the Marvel portal. Of course, they don't acknowledge the other, you know, they don't go like, you know, there's no, it's just the Marvel Cinematic Universe portal. And she's looking around, she's like, alright, where do I need to go here? And she's like, oh, okay, there, Assembled. So she goes to Assembled, which, for those who don't know, and I know it's kind of I don't know if it's as big of a subset as you would think, but the Assembled documentaries, I really love them. Because I've always loved behind-the-scenes shit. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I used to watch the VHS for, like, Peter Pan, and the VHS for the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, and they had these making-of documentaries, and that was something I'm like, oh, fuck this, we get to pass it. I'm like, this is really cool. Seeing how they did it. It's like, when you look back at the way they did Peter Pan, watching that, it's like, oh, it's motion capture. It's like, when you go back and watch what they did in Peter Pan, this is completely off topic, but if you can find that maybe on YouTube, or maybe it's on the Peter Pan DVD from a few years back, this making of documentary they did, and they show how they did it, where they had the actress who was playing Tinkerbell go and act everything out, and then they just drew what she was doing. It's like, oh, that's just motion capture. That's proto-motion capture. It's really cool. So, with all of that happening, We have this, she goes in. So that's Assembled. Assembled is one of those behind-the-scenes documentaries. They do it for every movie and every show since Phase 4 on. And she goes into, Assembled and ends up in the Marvel Studios offices on the Disney lot. And it's, she goes to the writer's room and starts berating the writers, like, what the fuck, like, why is this, like, this is not how my show should end, this is not right, this is kind of dumb, and it's like, you got to take it up with, and they say, you got to take it up with Kevin, not our choice, you got to take it up with Kevin, and she's like, alright, where's Kevin? So, she goes into, like, the main central office of Marvel Studios, and they make this very long, and the thing is, too, it is so self-aware that it is, it's the kind of thing that, like, I don't think I've ever seen a studio take the piss out of themselves in this way. Like, they don't really, like, and it's not even that. It's like, when you get to, what's it called? When you get to, the NDA joke is great, where it's like she gets there and she's just scrolling, like, through this giant-ass NDA on a little tablet, and she signs it with her finger, and then they kick her out, try to kick her out, and anyway, like, it's one of those, like, one of those jokes is great, and then when she gets to meet Kevin, who is an AI who puts together all the movies, and it's got, and I think this is such a great little design choice, but it's got the little hat, too. It looks like the way that the thing is designed, it has a little hat, and then they make a joke about, like, look, it's very expensive if you transform on camera, I will cut away to me, then de-transform, because I've already allocated your effects budget to another show. And she's like, alright, fair enough. So she transforms back to Jen, off camera, and then cuts back to her, she's Jen, and it's like, alright, moving on. And it's such a great little bit. And the explanation is like, look, all of your movies and shows end the same way, with this giant CGI clusterfuck, and then she starts picking apart what shouldn't be in the finale, and it's such a great little moment of, like, this is a studio that's, like, aware of the criticisms that it gets, and is like, alright, and then it shows that, like, what this entire show has been is just, there is a certain subset of the fan base that they know they'll never please. This is the opposite of The Rise of Skywalker, where The Rise of Skywalker saw a subset of the fan base that they weren't pleasing, and then they jumped in and tried to get that subset back, which pissed off both people who liked the direction they had gone in The Last Jedi, and people who didn't like the direction they had gone in The Last Jedi, which was just a mess of a movie altogether. When you watch this is Marvel Studios doing the exact opposite. Saying, we see you, we hear you, fuck you. And it's like, even down to, like, the opening of the episode being an homage to the 1970s Incredible Hulk show. Where it's like, it's the intro from that, but with Jen and doing the Savage She-Hulk. Like, it's such a great homage, and it's like, what, you want it to look like this? Is this what you want? Is this really what you wanted? And it's such a great way to sum up everything for that, and then still, like, take the piss out of that. So it's like, the entire way through the show, this has been a colossal fuck you to a certain subset of the fan base, and I'm 100% here for it. It is them saying, like, look, you can be upset. Feel free to be upset. We're not going to change what we're doing for you. And I feel like that was refreshing to see, where it's like, we're not going to bow to these morons. And then she explains, too, and it's like, she lays out, look, that's not good to have this happen. It's like, because the villain isn't the powers, because my arc is about coming to terms with my powers. So the villain here is not the powers, which is what doing this third act like this would make it. The villain is this guy. And it's such a great breakdown of that, and it sounds like the story break meetings in the actual writer's room. And I would love to hear an interview with some of the writers on this and talk and hear what they have to say about all of that. It is such a well done, such a well executed finale, and it's like they're talking about how it's like, yeah, and it's like, look, we, all of your movies end up with these giant clusterfuck CGI messes, and then it's like, don't bring back Hulk in this scene because it's out of nowhere and it's just him saving me, and that doesn't help the show in any way. And I think that they set up, they're doing another Hulk movie. Because I seem to recall reading somewhere that someone noticed that there's like a 15-year shelf life on that Hulk contract. Hulk contract at Universal. That, and then she goes, when are the X-Men coming? And she, gives a thumbs up to the camera, like she's asking that for us. And it is such a self-aware, it is a level of self-awareness within a show that I don't think we've seen before. And, I mean, it's one of the things where it's like this show has gone full postmodern in a way that makes it truly one of the most interesting things they've done under Marvel Studios, and definitely the best thing they've done for Marvel Studios on Disney+. Because it's one of those things where it's like, it takes everything that's happening over the course of the show and shows, well, this is how we tie it all together. And granted, look, I mean, looking back, there are ways they could have lined it up a little bit cleaner, so that way that finale lines up a little bit better. But I think it is entirely intentional now. Where, my criticism a few weeks back, where it's like, did we really need the Titania episode and the wedding episode back to back? I don't really think so. I think that was I think that was a bad idea, and now it makes sense as to why they did that. It's trying to make you think that Titania is going to be a bigger player, so that way when she shows up in the finale, it's like, oh wait, she's here too. When she's not important to the story. And it's even the whole thing with, Josh coming as late in the season as he did, it's all part of that design, and it works so well with the context that it's designed to be a clusterfuck. And it's not one of the things where it's designed to be a clusterfuck, so that makes it good because of that. It's designed to be a clusterfuck because it's designed to make fun of every other finale in every other Marvel thing. And it works very well in that regard. And I think that it is, this should be the new bar by which Marvel Studios strives to. And even things like the effects not being fully there, that feels part of the joke now. And it works so well. I'm very interested to hear how people who don't like the show, who didn't like the show, react to this finale. Because the finale is brilliant. I mean, that's the thing, is that it's not an understated brilliance, it is just the entire time they were building towards this, and this they were building to. It's not like other shows where it's like, oh, they were building towards this finale, so it's like, okay. And looking back on, what every other thing is, it's the other Disney Plus shows were all about them getting the suits, having these giant CGI clusterfuck fights, and all of that. And every other show, including this one, I said, I don't know how they're going to wrap this all up in one episode. And the answer to this one was, they never intended to. It was never the point to be able to take all the plot threads that they laid out and tie them all up in a way that, Moon Knight, or Miss Marvel, or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or WandaVision did. It's that wasn't the point. That was never the point. It was never going to be the point. And they intentionally laid out all this stuff that was ultimately going to amount to nothing. And it was such a great idea with great execution. I think that was a great way to do this show. So, yeah, we'll wrap up there for today. Go check out She-Hulk on Disney+. It's short. Each episode's a half hour long, so you can probably plow through it pretty quickly. It's 9 episodes. Tonight I will be seeing Halloween Kills, not in theaters because I'm a giant baby. I will be seeing it on Peacock, and yeah, we'll be talking about that tomorrow morning. Tomorrow afternoon I will be seeing a series of short films at the Hamptons International Film Festival, so we'll talk about that tomorrow evening. And Sunday in the evening, I will be going to see She Said at the Hamptons International Film Festival. And She Said is the Harvey Weinstein movie, which I think I've said it before. I love that trailer. That trailer is so well done. And that alone made me interested in the movie, is the way, how well that trailer was executed. But that is, that is coming all next week, all this weekend. Also, at some point this weekend, I will be doing I Love You, You Hate Me, the Barney documentary on Peacock, but I don't know when that'll be yet. So, until then, have a great rest of your week.